My name is Jeff Newton. I grew up in the projects on the west side of Chicago. As a little boy, I used to always go to the 16th floor of that project development. And I used to look out beyond where I was. I had to look out beyond where I was because in that particular environment, there was nothing but drugs, nothing but violence. Trust me, there were some good times that we had, but in a lot of ways, it was a pretty tough, rough environment. So I used to go up to the 16th floor, and I always like to say I used to rise up to the 16th floor. I loved it up there because I was able to look what seemed to be miles and miles away, far from me. I used to look at downtown Chicago, and I used to wonder what that was like. One day I was playing softball, and where we played softball at in the playground, we played softball near a concrete turtle. I used to pitch the softball from that concrete turtle. One day I was pitching. I pitched the softball, and shots rang out. And I turned to run, and when I turned to run, I saw the bullet hit the turtle, missing me by seconds. So in my anger and fear, I started running down Roosevelt Road. I was running hard. I was running scared, and I was sweating, and I was tired, and I got to the end of Roosevelt Road, and I wiped my eyes, and I looked up, and I saw downtown Chicago right in front of my eyes. In that very moment, I was looking at the men and the women walking downtown. And I saw the men with the briefcases and the suits and the ties. And I said to myself, as a 7, 8-year-old, that's going to be me. In that moment, there was a moment that I rose. It gave me clarity about my purpose. In that moment, I found out who I was. 9, 10 years later, I was that guy walking downtown with a suit and tie on and my briefcase. I had found my purpose. As we fast forward to today, and I always love the term rise. I was able to rise in that moment. And we all have moments where we rise. And I need you all to know, those are the moments where your purpose is made manifest. I want to show you something. Out of that moment came this book, I Rise to the Next Level of Living. So what is Real Talk about? Real talk is about real stories from real people who were led through to their purpose through some difficult times that were in their life. Many times those difficult times come, we want to run from them, we want to quit, we get frustrated. I need you to know, if you just keep going, if you just keep running, if you just keep sweating, if you just keep crying, but you keep moving, I promise you, in that moment, you will rise to your purpose. That's what real talk is about. Real stories from real people about real life. In these moments, what I believe is that Revelation 12 and 11 will come forth. Here's what it says. It says that we triumph over the enemy by the blood of the Lamb, and here it is, and by the word of our testimony. So here today, in this space, you're going to hear testimonies. Coming to the stage right now, won't you welcome Alicia Meeks.
Purpose. Purpose is the reason something is created, the reason why something exists. What is my purpose? Why do I exist? Why was I created? Through some difficult times, I began to manifest my purpose, and I learned that my purpose was to impart and inspire. I made some rough choices in my life. Some rough choices in my life that led me to a domestic violent relationship, which led to a domestically violent marriage, which led to a domestically violent divorce. I smile because it's over, and it led me to my purpose. Through that relationship, that marriage, that divorce, it led me to pursue a master's degree in psychology because I just really wanted to understand the reason why. I wanted to understand the reason for my existence, the reason why people do the things that they do. Although we're not going to always understand the reasons why, at least I was pursuing the thought of understanding. So with that being said, these terrible situations in my life, I took the lemons and made lemonade with it. A lot of women, they began to be drawn to me for a word of encouragement, for a shoulder to lean on, for a listening ear. And that is what drew me to know that my purpose was to inspire and to impart my situations, the things that I've been through in life. Sometimes there's a message in our mess, and I truly believe that there is definitely a message in my mess, because the mess that I went through is definitely encouraging and inspiring others to not give up, to give them hope. Because if I had to describe myself, I would describe myself as the woman who waited on God. Because after that first domestically violent relationship, I just seemed to not be able to get it right as it relates to relationships. So I made a promise to God that I was going to wait on him. And after 5 years of being single, celibate, and waiting on God, God did turn my life around. He blessed me with a magnificent husband, and that union created several businesses, and in that union, that inspired me to give others hope. To know that if we wait on God and you trust and believe, he can turn things around for you. So although that domestically violent relationship was terrible, there was power and purpose in that pain. While you're going through those type of situations, you may not think that there's power in that pain, but that pain led to my purpose. So I regret nothing when I think back on that situation, because if I didn't go through that situation, it wouldn't have led me to deeply think about my purpose. And then when I realized my purpose, that led me to join a fearless storyteller movement, in which I fearlessly joined with other women to tell my story, which created a book called When the Soul Cries. That's my book, and in my book, myself and other fearless women are exposing our past and our pain to inspire other women, other people, other persons to just know that you too can wait on God, be inspired, have hope, and learn that there is purpose in every situation, even purpose in your pain.
Real stories from real people about real life. I need somebody to know that you still yet have a purpose no matter what you're going through. In fact, I want you to listen to this. If you think you are beaten, you are. If you think you dare not, you don't. If you like to win but think you can't, it's almost a cinch you won't. But if you think you'll lose, you've lost. For out in the world you find success begins with a person's will. It's all in a state of mind. If you think you're outclassed, you are. You got to think high to rise. You got to be sure of yourself before you can ever win a prize. Because life's battles don't always go to the stronger or faster man. Because sooner or late, the one who wins is the one that thinks they can. Real talk is about encouraging people. Get ready to be encouraged. Hear from Kevin Meeks.
"18 years old, no direction, fear and anger residing in the same place with a 4-year-old. So I figured I'd do some good, try to enlist into the Navy, and was rejected. It's kind of like the story of my life, being rejected by my father, some peers, and even some ministries, because I had a child at 14 and I'm 18. Not being able to be with my peers or around other girls of my peers because the parents think that I'm a menace or I'm going to attack their daughters. So after being rejected from the Navy, I'm so angry. So now I want to be a savage. I take a drug deal with me and my friends, because that was what I figured that I was going to do to get some money to provide for my 4-year-old. I take a drug deal, amongst other things that I was doing: petty crime, petty theft, retail theft, which landed me nowhere but staring down the barrel of a gun, and later standing in front of a sitting court judge fighting for whatever little freedom that I thought I had. Bottle up resentment and anger and fear. A savage on the outside, but a little Bambi bear in the inside. So feeling like I got nothing else to lose, by any means necessary, I'm going to get this money. By any means necessary. So if that meant breaking into cars, home invasions, I'm going to do that to survive for myself and for my child. No father around, no direction. But oddly enough, I would dip in and out of church worship service to kind of soothe some type of conscience that I had with myself. Sleeping with all type of women, even had another son with a married woman, just taking my life down a different road. So I served my time. By God's grace, I got community service for some of the bad I was doing that I got caught with. Marijuana and all types of other things I was doing. So with $100 and a stick of gum in my pocket, I decided to surrender. And I made a covenant with God. And I said, God, if you enlarge my territory, I promise I won't do nothing else. I lay it all down. Only if you enlarge my territory. So I made the first step out of faith, because I did have some word in me. And God answered my prayers. And things got better. I got a good job. I got confidence about myself. I was accepted. So now my purpose amongst my selfish acts, self-serving because I felt like the world owed me, my purpose is to motivate, inspire, and to be selfless and to give to others. So I'm married now with my own wife, my own kids, with more than 2 businesses. And I thank God that I am living my purpose. So that's what I got.
Purpose. Real talk from real people with real stories. Hear this powerful story from Donnell Digby.
My name's Donnell Digby. Grew up in a family of 11 in the projects. Of course, my dad was there with us, which was a rarity in that time. In my growing up, I didn't spend much time with my dad. The only information I had from him was what I shouldn't do and where I better be when the street lights came on. And growing up, eventually reached the age of 17. By the time Dad was ready to talk to me, I was too busy with other things, such as girls and everything else that interests a 17-year-old guy. Eventually, I got married. I married young, my wife and I. But then one day, Mom told me Dad was sick. I would go to see Dad, and Dad would tell me, son, I'm okay. He wouldn't talk much. We'd look at TV, and after a while, I'd leave. Then Dad was in the hospital, and I went to the hospital to see Dad. Dad told me he would be okay and never talked about what was wrong with him. That night, Dad died. And it hurt me to my heart because if I had known that he was going to die in that hour, there were so many precious and important things we could have discussed, father to son. And I made up my mind then, when I have children, I'll talk to my kids. I'll spend time with my kids. I'll laugh with my kids. I'll cry with my kids. I'll be everything that I can be with my kids. That weekend, driving home from the cemetery after burying my father was the loneliest time I ever felt in my life. I felt alone for the first time. After that, my marriage kind of went off the wheels with no father around to keep me on the straight path. I began to hang out, and before I know it, I wasn't at home. One day, the Lord told me, go home. See about your son. So I went home. And after that, I began to develop a stronger relationship with my kids. We did many things with my kids. And then I noticed that they were going to church, so I decided to go to church along with them. And then going to church, I met another band of men that were looking to raise their kids. That's all we really wanted. We didn't come to church because we loved God, but we knew that God was the answer. And so we worked together through the church and through raising our sons together to begin to do other things. And I've noticed in my life that now other men are drawn to me simply because I've taken time with my kids. Some of the roughest characters I ever met in my life, guys I wouldn't even let in my house, they were drawn to me because they saw how I handled my kids. And over the years, God has used me many times to raise up other men, grown men, simply because of the hurt I felt and the void I had without my dad being there. And so I really appreciate the emptiness. I can now appreciate the pain because it has led me to a place of purpose that's more powerful than anything I've ever known in my life. Right now, I can collaborate with my sons on business ideas, business ventures. With both of them, we laugh, we talk. We do everything but wrestle. I'm too old to be wrestling with them. But other than that, man, I'm so happy for my journey in life, and I wouldn't trade anything for what God has done for me.
Real talk from real people with real stories. Father issues. When I was growing up, I played 3 sports: baseball, basketball, and football. My dad, as I was growing up, he worked really hard. I have 5 sisters and 3 brothers. I told you that we grew up in the projects in a 3-bedroom apartment, and my father worked really hard to put food on the table. He went to work every day. I saw him leave, and I saw him come back. But I never saw him at my baseball game. I never saw him at my basketball game, and I never saw him at my football game. And I always wondered why. Here I was a little boy. Whenever we won, other people would get hugs and accolades from their family members. But I never saw my dad. It kind of raised up inside of me a little anger with my dad. But I would tell you that many times when my dad wasn't with me, although he worked, he was at church. And I'm going to tell you something. He spent so much time at church, I used to resent the fact that he chose church over me. A lonely little boy just looking for his father to say, good job. Never got it. But I will tell you something. As I learned earlier, I had to forgive my dad. But what I remembered was my dad, before he came to know God, he was an alcoholic. And I'm going to tell you something. I realized that he was pouring himself in the church because he knew that if he didn't, he'll probably go back to that alcohol. And I understood that. And I'm going to tell you something. Here's what it did for me as a father who has 3 of his own children. I was at every football game. I was at every basketball game. I was at every baseball game. I was at every golf item. I was at everything I could possibly be at. And I tell you this, I also have a daughter. I was at every ballet recital. Yes. Every long ballet recital. I was at every dance recital. I was at everything, cheerleading competitions, everything that my kids did. That's what I ended up learning from my dad. So there are things that sometimes we have to do, and one of the main things we have to do with people who we feel that have wronged us, and that is to forgive them. Real talk from real people with real stories. So joining me on the stage is the 3 people that we just heard from. Alicia Meeks, Kevin Meeks, and by the way, they're married, and also Donnell Digby. We're just going to talk a little bit more about some of the stories that they told us and shared with us on tonight. Hey, everybody. How we doing? All right. Is Kevin good over there? You good? You good with your wife speaking for you, right? Thank you all for joining us for this inaugural edition of Real Talk. And the first question I want to ask you all as a whole, why do you think that real talk, real stories from real people, why could this be important, not just for the body of Christ, but for the world at large?
Real talk is about real issues, and there's nothing new under the sun. Everybody got these common things in common, but everybody's not talking about these things that are in common.
agree. I was very excited to be a part of this because we need some real talk. We need to get to the real issues and talk about what's really going on, what's really happening to those around us, and what we've been through. So I agree. Real talk. We done got really real today.
Pass it on over to hubby.
Yeah, I really think this is good because even in the body of Christ and even in the church, it's a lot of real issues that need to be addressed. And I believe that our testimonies and other people's testimonies could help one another and liberate one another to see how we all came over it and found ourselves and found our purpose.
And that's the most important thing that I believe that real talk will do. And it goes back to the scripture once again in Revelation chapter 12, verse 11, said we triumph over the enemy by the blood of the Lamb and the word of our testimony. Sometimes we don't understand the power behind our testimony. And our testimony is liberating. Here's the thing that I would say, for me, about what's going on in our world today. And you could just take a simple thing that happens on a daily basis where we see kids being killed in the street. And for that person that pulls the trigger, what kind of life does that person have that makes them think that it's necessary to pull that trigger? We can always point the finger at them, but we don't understand that they're out there trying to survive. They're trying to put food on their table, trying to get money, and that's real stuff. They just using a vehicle that's destructive to be able to do that. And that's the kind of thing that I want to be able for us to get behind the scenes, and let's see that ugly thing that affects us all. We're all affected by it. So we got to make sure that we are telling those real stories so we can help somebody get healed. That's another part of it. So I want to ask you, Alicia, what were some of the feelings you actually were feeling at the time that you were being abused? What were the feelings that you were having?
To be honest, during those times, I felt anger. I was mad. I was mad at God. Why was I mad at God? I was mad at God because I didn't shack up. I didn't have a baby before marriage. I didn't have a shotgun wedding because I was pregnant. I tried to do everything in the way in which I thought God wanted it to go. So why did it end up like this? Why me, God? Why did I have to go through something like this? Why did I have to be cheated on? Why did my marriage have to not work? Why couldn't my daughter grow up in a two-parent household? So I was angry. I felt anger. I felt sadness. I think I went through all of the emotions. And if I have to be honest, real talk, it was a point in time that I thought I was going to be on the first 48. I just really was that angry. I was so mad. I wanted to hurt somebody. But God, he was able to get me through. I mean, my relationship during that time with God was nowhere near as great as my relationship with God is right now. And I think that's a part of the purpose. Yeah. He wants to bring us to him. He doesn't want to be forced upon us. He wants us to willingly come. And so when you get to a certain stage in your life, it's like, come on, can't nobody help me with this but God. So those were some of the emotions that I was feeling during that time.
We were talking. That's awesome, and that's the stuff that's the stuff that I think really people really have to feel. And let me just say this. And we were talking in the back in the green room earlier, how we make people think about Christians that we got it all together and we had this little smooth ride, and actually riding smooth right now. And man, the road is bumpy for all of us. It's just us who won't tell our real story. And this will create those opportunities for us to tell those real stories, because we're going through the same stuff that sinners go through. Yes. We are. So we want to make sure that we want to make sure that we're on a level playing field with the entire world. And so we want to make sure that we do that. And Kevin, we were talking about that earlier, and there was a couple of things that you said as it relates to the importance of us being able to tell those stories?
Yeah, I think it's real important for us to tell those stories because we harbor so many feelings, and they germinate through like through your kids, through your marriage and other relationships. So I think it's extremely important to get those messages out, get those testimonies out, to, like I said before, to just be liberated, man. So you're not killing other generations with your stuff.
Right.
Because that's what it really is. It's your stuff.
Tell us a little bit about, in your purpose, what God has led you to, and a little bit more about your business and everything.
So right now we have my wife and I, we have a transporting business where we transport cars to and from dealerships and auctions. We also have signature celebrations. Our transporting business is KAM Transport. That's Kevin and Alicia Meeks Transport. It's a trucking business. Signature celebrations, it's a wedding event coordinating business. So that's what we do. And I really thank God for those businesses, because from where I come from, that wasn't what's happening. We wasn't taught entrepreneurship. So I thank God for my wife, and I thank God for the positioning for business right now.
Absolutely. Since we're talking about entrepreneurship, let me tell you about this gentleman that sits to my right. He is doing some exciting things in the city of Chicago, and he talked about his story, but his purpose is being fulfilled right now through that story, doing some great things on the southeast side of Chicago. Tell us a little bit about the Woodlawn.
Well, the Woodlawn is unique. It's a pop-up where we have a restaurant that we rent out to other chefs and other would-be restaurateur people just to find out if they want to get into that field. The other side is an event side. We rent that out for small occasions, baby showers, small birthday parties, things of that nature. Another thing we do is commit time to donate to the community and the community efforts. What we're looking to do is bring to the community those things that they go outside of the community to get. We want the line dancing classes. We even have crocheting classes in there. We're looking to do everything that would allow our community to regain the vigor and vitality. That's the word that they used to have. Now, can I take a minute and tell my story? Absolutely. We was talking about real stuff. See, people come into the cafe and they see my wife there, my son's there, and me, and they say, man, what a great family, but they don't know our story. You see, I got saved after my kids. And after I got saved, I realized that it was my DNA and my boys, and they needed me there with them. That same rough stuff I went through, they were bound to go through. I'm going to recount one story about my oldest son, which is the entrepreneur behind the Woodlawn. I was at church service one day, Thursday, and we had men's choir rehearsal, and we got ready to go home. I dropped my brother-in-law off, and I saw my nephew running up the street toward us. When he got close to the car, he said, Uncle, your son's been shot. And so I drove to the hospital where my son was, and I walked in the room, in the emergency room, and he was laying on a white bed. I remember the white sheets, and it was blood splattered all around him. And there were the elders from the church at that time, and the doctors tending to him. And so they told me he was going to be okay, he was going to make it. And I took a sigh of relief. Then I remembered I had another son still at home by himself. So I walked outside the emergency room, and when I stepped outside the emergency room, my knees buckled. I got weak. I slumped up against the wall and told the Lord, Lord, if you don't help me, I can't do this by myself. I was able then to go home and see about my younger boy. And then that's just one event I had to walk my sons through, because the same blood that ran through me ran through them. But the same blood that covered me covered them. Yeah. And so it wasn't an easy walk. It wasn't a day at the beach. It was a struggle. Sometimes it's yet still a struggle, because I still got to pray for them when I see me rise up in there. But I know God is going to bring them through everything, and I thank him and give him all the glory.
Real stories from real people about real life. As you were talking about that, man, I was reminded probably of my most, I guess, devastating and challenging moment as a father. It was about 3 o'clock in the morning. My son called me. He was away at college in the north suburbs of Chicago. And he called me because when he went away to college, he went away with his girlfriend. She went to a different college in the same community. And he called me and told her, he told me that she had been in a car accident and she died. And so to hear my son on the other end, barely just getting that, she go, and I'm hearing this and I'm like, whoa, man. And all I can say is I'm on my way. And so it's about 2.5 hours away. So I jump in the car, man, and I'm telling you, that was the longest 2.5 hours in the world. So I get there, and he's in the dorm, and I'm knocking on the door. But then I turn in my peripheral, I can see somebody in the corner. He was sitting in the corner of the hallway, balled up, bawling his eyes out, man. And it's like it was like a moment where I couldn't do nothing. As a father, I couldn't think of the right words to say. And in that moment, I think all I can really do is what you just said. God, you're going to have to help me through this one. You're going to have to help him through this one. Because that for somebody that close to him to be gone just like that, how do you even just translate that? You know what I'm saying? And so, needless to say, we drove all the way back home, man, and sitting in that car, and I'm telling you, it was like we were driving, and he had his phone, so he put on some music that apparently they listened to together. And boy, can I tell you how hard he was crying. But at the same time, I knew that God was ministering to him. And I think sometimes, we think that the body of Christ and Christians are void from having issues, man. We got the same ones, yo. So, again, this is what these moments are about, being able to tell those real stories about our lives. And the fact that, man, if I didn't have God, I don't even know what I would do. So,
and that's similar. That's what, when you just said about the real stories, it just brought me back to my book, When the Soul Cries. It's real stories in this book from real women that went through some real tough situations. As it says, trauma, tears, and triumph, that's the point. The last word, triumph. Because it ends well. When you go through something, you think like that's the end of the world. And even my story is in here. It's the last, because it's my book, it's the last story in the book. But if you skip back to the last story in the book, but read all of them, and by the way, you can purchase it at aliciameeks.com. It's just simple, aliciameeks.com. But these stories in the book is just like the stories that's being told on this stage. It's meant to empower and inspire, and it's purpose. It's purpose. It's purpose in this. This is great what you're doing, Pastor Jeff. This segment, Real Talk, it's going to really touch lives. It has to.
It really is, and we're doing this together. It's
Yes.
not just me, and everybody knows, how I am. I just really want people to be set free, and many times, we think those people that I'm talking about are people that don't know God. I'm talking about people that do need God, because we got some people that are saved and still bound, and they need to be set free too. So what can we do but be able to share our stories with one another so that they can recognize that we can connect in that way? And when you connect it that way, then we have some real, watch this, authentic relationships instead of these fake relationships we got. Okay. I was finna go there, but, that's for another time. So, Kevin, I want you to share a little bit more about your story, but I want to do as I did with Alicia and talk about how you felt in those moments. All right, so like in the moment that I just talked about, I just felt I was powerless as a father to do something for my son. In those moments that you talked about in your opening statement, how did you feel?
I felt overwhelmed, and I felt powerless, but then I felt a sense of I have to take care of a 4-year-old. And I'm ill-equipped. I'm ill-equipped to deal with this situation that I created, that I didn't have guidance enough to steer away from, but he's here. But not even having guidance that he's now here. So I felt alone and looking to everything else but God. And I think that's how I took so long to even get to my purpose. Because it's staring me right in my face, but I'm running like around robin around it. And I just felt alone and looking to everybody else to be that father figure, mother figure, or whatever figure in my life to just give me some sense of hope or give me some sense of clarity about me. So just going around the rumor mill and really not getting nowhere.
I'm gonna have you expound on something because I'm getting ready to make a statement about what you just said. I think sometimes when we are going around in circles, those circles have purpose too. They're teaching you things. So they're not circles that are taking you off course. Those circles are actually keep you on course. Now, for those of you who are feeling overwhelmed right now, because I know somebody right now is feeling overwhelmed by what's going on in their life, right now, do not forget how it makes you feel. Because you're going to be able to tell a testimony of not how you were overwhelmed, but how you got through it, being overwhelmed. So I'm coming back to you. Yeah, come on.
So I want to say something, right? So it go back to the scripture, and I don't know the whole scripture, right? Where it says all things work together to the good of those.
Hold on, I'm gonna do something right quick because I thought that was good. He said he didn't really know the scripture all the way through. Guess what? Sometimes we don't know the scripture all the way through. We don't know it. But he knows what that scripture is. Go ahead, man. I just had to say that.
So it brings me back to that scripture, right? So when you looking at your life and you looking at, oh, I got it hard, and God is really putting your life together. Now, there's some things that we put ourselves in, right? I'm not saying to deal with abuse and say, oh, yeah, God is going to do something with this. I'm not saying to deal with that. But I'm saying everything that happens to you happens for you. That's what it is. And really, my wife and me and my wife, we got this saying, if nothing changes, nothing changes, right? So even with God, right, if you don't choose to want to change, nothing will change. Like, he can't just come into your situations. So.
Oh, man, I love that, man. You cut that off. That's what's up. All right, I'd love to hear that. Did you want to say something about what he just shared? Saw that looked like he was on the edge of your seat.
It's just the undercurrent of the struggle. People think that the struggle isn't real. The struggle is real. But the purpose of the struggle is to release something that's on the inside of you. As a kid, I knew growing up that when somebody got their knee in your chest and your back is against the wall, something has to rise up out of you that's bigger than that thing that pushed you down there. And all God is looking to do to release in your life is that thing that's been packed up and tied up and knotted up. But it takes the struggle to bring it out of you. Just trust God and struggle on, because one day you'll appreciate the battle.
Trust God and struggle on. Yes, the struggle just might not end right now, but struggle on. I love that. I'm gonna share something I shared on last week at our Digging Deep Bible study, and we were talking about purpose. I had a picture of a caterpillar, and the caterpillar crawls. Its purpose is to crawl, but we know that on the inside of that caterpillar is a butterfly. The purpose of the caterpillar is not to fly. But God is making that butterfly on the inside of you for what while it's crawling, it's building those wings on the inside. So as he builds those wings on the inside, then that shell that's around that caterpillar becomes something that's uncomfortable. Let me share something with you, internet audience. If you're uncomfortable right now, your purpose is getting ready to be birthed. So now it's uncomfortable and it breaks out of that shell. So somebody need to break out of their shell right now so you can fly. I just had to get that out. So, well, what I want to do right now as we prepare to close this segment, and I want to first of all thank you all for joining us for this inaugural show of Real Talk. I appreciate y'all. You all did just what I thought you would do, and that's be real. And so as we close, I want you all to close out by letting the audience know anything that you need them to know, encourage them, inspire them as we close out.
This is Real Talk, and God is not through. I have a testimony just like everybody else on this stage, and you viewing. God is not through with me, you, or none of us yet. So there's always going to be a new testimony. So it's a new level. So I want you to be encouraged that this is not going to be where you're going to stay. You're going to elevate, and you're going to overcome, and you're going to be empowered to do even better things than where you are right now.
Mine is very simple. As we sit here on our 5-year wedding anniversary.
Yes, happy anniversary.
That's the testimony right there. God can and he will. God can and God will.
Real talk, real men talk. There's something on the inside of you that you just need to talk out. No longer needing to walk around in frustration, in desperation, in disappointment, and in depression. Begin to talk. There's a man that will hear you, that won't judge you, that won't try to fix you. All you need is an ear to hear, but that ear can't hear till you begin to talk.
All you that's out there on the internet audience, we want to thank God for you joining us, spending your time, taking the time out to hear these real stories from real people about real life. That is all that we're going to be doing over the next several weeks. We'll have different people that are coming, talking about their story, about their life. I am most certain that these stories are going to touch your life. And that's what it's designed to do, is empower and inspire you to do what God has given you to do and lead you to your purpose. I want to share with you, I want you to do, once again, Misha, let them know where they can get your book.
www.aliciameeks.com. AliciaMeeks.com. When the Soul Cries.
Yep. And also, I mentioned my book earlier is I Rise to the Next Level of Living. You can get that book at irisethebook.com, irisethebook.com. You can search it on Amazon. It's on Amazon as well, Arthur Jeff Newton. So as we begin to do these different things, we want to make sure that we give people opportunities to share what God is doing in their life as it relates to their purpose. If you want to give some information about the Woodlawn.
The Woodlawn, the physical address is 1200 East 79th Street. That's 79th and Woodlawn. The email address is woodlawn1200.com. thewoodlawn1200.com.
All right. So thank you once again for joining us. We thank God for you. We just believe that as you hear these real stories from real people about real life, Revelation 12 and 11 is going to manifest itself in your life. You will be able to triumph. God bless you. Thanks for joining us.